Hello, you are listening to the Natural Healing Show for UK Health Radio. I'm your host, Catherine Carrigan, medical intuitive healer, Amazon #1 best-selling author. You can find out more about me and my work at catherinecarrigan.com and unlimitedenergynow.com. While you're there, definitely sign up for my newsletter so you can learn even more about how you can heal yourself naturally. Our guest today is Jose Carlos Bouso. Jose Carlos Bouso is a psychologist and he has a PhD in pharmacology. If you'll just hang and not turn off your video for our watchers. And he's also the scientific director of the International Center for Ethnobotanical Education, Research, and Service. He's based in Spain, and he's going to be talking to us today about what is ayahuasca. Welcome, Jose Carlos Bouso.
Welcome, Kathleen. Thank you very much for inviting me to your program.
So, Jose Carlos Bouso, what is the International Center for Ethnobotanical Education, Research, and Service?
Well, it's a non-governmental organization that is based in Spain, but we work internationally. And the main goal of this organization, of our organization, is to deal with the globalization of ethnobotanicals like ayahuasca, Iboga, peyote. So we try to work in the triangulation of three areas, no, that are human rights, public policies, and evidence-based science. So all the things that we try to do has these principles, like main directions. That we work for the public benefit from a scientific perspective and in a human rights-based approach.
And at the beginning, I neglected to give Jose Carlos Bouso's very important research website where everyone can go to find out more information. So you can find out more information about Jose Carlos Bouso and his wonderful work at www.iceers.org. That's iseers.org, and it's CEE. I'll spell it again, ICEERS.org. Now, Jose Carlos Bouso, what exactly is an ethnobotanical?
Well, ethnobotanicals are plants that are used by different cultures. Every culture has its own medicines. Our culture has our Western and allopathic medicine, but there are other cultures that have other medicines. The medical anthropologists used to say that every culture has their own diseases. So since every culture has their own diseases, every culture has their own medicine, but not necessarily one medicine is better than the other. No? We used to say that the allopathic medicine is the best one because it's based in the scientific perspective and so on. But I think that the medicines, that the medical systems in other cultures also are based in their own epistemologies that are also based in scientific terms, because I think that the human mind is also constructed in order to think in a scientific way. So ethnobotanicals are the different plants that are used by different cultures in their traditional medicines. In this sense, ayahuasca is an ethnobotanical because it's the main, probably the main medicine in the Amazonian traditional medicine, or Iboga has a central role in the traditional medicines of some African cultures, like the beauty and others, or peyote in some Mexican traditional medicines. This is why we refer to ethnobotanical, not to plants or even animals that are part of the traditional medicines of some culture.
Now, here at the Natural Healing Show for UK Health Radio, I've done many interviews about Iboga. And I work for a healing center in Costa Rica, and I do medical intuitive readings before anybody goes to Costa Rica for Iboga plant medicine ceremonies. So I'm so happy to be able to interview you today, Jose Carlos Bouso, about ayahuasca. What exactly is ayahuasca?
Well, ayahuasca, yes, I know that you are interested in ayahuasca, but at some point we can talk a little bit about ibogaine because we have just finished a clinical trial with ibogaine for the treatment of opioid dependence. But well, only if you are interested on.
Yes.
Going back to your question, ayahuasca is a vine that grows in all the Amazonian rainforest, and the name of this vine is Banisteriopsis caapi. So ayahuasca is whatever decoction that is made with Banisteriopsis caapi. Ayahuasca is both the name of the vine and the name of the preparation of the decoction. Along the Amazonian rainforest, in the Amazonian rainforest, there are too many different cultures, too many different ethnics, and every culture, every tradition, and even curandero or even shaman or even taita has their own recipe in order to prepare ayahuasca. Ayahuasca, for us, for the Westerns, have been arrived like the combination of Banisteriopsis caapi with the leaves of a tree that is Psychotria viridis, but this is a kind of reductionism. Ayahuasca, in the strict sense, is the vine named Banisteriopsis caapi and the decoction made with Banisteriopsis caapi, and then every curandero or every taita or every shaman put different medicinal plants. There is one kind of ayahuasca that is the one that has been popularized in Western, that is a combination with Psychotria viridis. Psychotria viridis, the leaves of Psychotria viridis contains a hallucinogen compound that is dimethyltryptamine. So for the Western people, and when we Western go to the Amazonian, we are searching for this specific combination because it seems that we are looking for the hallucinations or the psychedelic experiences. So probably when someone hears about ayahuasca, in his mind is this specific combination of Banisteriopsis caapi and Psychotria viridis. But there are hundreds of different plants that a curandero can introduce into the decoction of Banisteriopsis caapi, depending what he or she tries to cure. We have to remember that above all, ayahuasca is considered in the ancient Amazonian medicine a medicine. It's not anything else. It's a medicine. It serves to cure, to heal, and this is the role that plays in all the Amazonian traditional medicine.
Now, you mentioned earlier, and I think it's very important that we talk about this, that the International Center for Ethnobotanical Education, Research, and Service has done research about Iboga for opioid dependence. And right now, I'm working with a client in the UK who's trying to get off opioids. And she did a traditional rehab program for about 4 weeks and is still struggling mightily. What has Jose Carlos Bouso what has your research shown about the benefits of the ethnobotanical plant, the healing plant, Iboga, shown for helping people get off opioids?
Well, thank you for the question. We have just finished a clinical trial using ibogaine for the detoxification of people who is in using methadone. People that maybe 10, 20 years ago, they were heroin users, but most of heroin users quit off from heroin because they enter into methadone maintenance programs. But for some reason, for some reasons, there is a percentage of people that has very high difficulties in order to quit off from methadone, and they can stay using methadone for all the rest of their lives. At the same time, people who quit off from methadone, they need too many time. Probably they need between 6 months and even 2 years in going little by little, decreasing the dose of methadone until, but again, there is for some of them, there is a point in which when they are trying to quit off little by little, there is a point that even half a milligram induce a withdrawal syndrome. So this is the people what we are working. We have just finished a clinical trial with 20 subjects that were 15, even 20 years in these methadone maintenance programs, and that they had a normal life. They regularized their lives after, well, they were heroin users in the past, but they don't have any other problem right now that iatrogenic dependence of methadone and that they want to quit off. So what we did was to create a program in which we administer 6 times ibogaine once per week. And at the time that we are administering the dose of methadone, I will explain it a little better right now. They are decreasing the dose. What happens with methadone? That methadone has a very long half-life. This is why they take methadone once a day. Usually in the morning is when they drink the methadone, and they can stay for 24 hours without using any other opiate. For example, the heroin users need to inject every 3-4 hours. This is one of the reasons why methadone was a good, in principle, a good approach in order to switch from heroin to methadone, because with methadone, you just need to drink the methadone once a day without experiencing withdrawal syndromes. But methadone is very high addictive and induces a very strong dependence. So it's very difficult sometimes for people to quit off from methadone. What happens with this very long half-life of methadone? That ibogaine, although ibogaine also has a very high life, is not enough to counteract with the long half-life of methadone. So if you administer ibogaine to someone who is with methadone, probably when the effect of ibogaine disappears, the withdrawal syndrome becomes again. So you need to administer very high doses of ibogaine in order to counteract the half-life of methadone. But the problems with high doses of ibogaine, if they can be risky for the heart.
Yeah.
Ibogaine has a cardiotoxic potential effect. So what we decided was to start with very small doses of ibogaine. We create this protocol because I had a friend that was for 17 years using ibogaine, She wanted to, with methadone, sorry, she wanted to quit off from Ibogaine, and she knew, because we were very close friends, that I was working in order to start a protocol with Ibogaine for the treatment of methadone intoxication. But well, this kind of research is quite slow. You need to have too many permits, and well, it's not easy to obtain the funds also. And she said one day, well, I will go ahead by my own without waiting for the starting of the project. So we decided to go ahead. And what we did with her was in Spain is not Ibogaine is not scheduled, so you can buy and you can use Ibogaine because it's not a scheduled drug. She obtained Ibogaine from a provider, and what we decided with Clark Wilkins, that is a colleague of mine, a very well-known woman in the Ibogaine stand, we decided to start with a dose of 100 milligrams of Ibogaine. She came to my house, stopped using methadone, and when the withdrawal effects become apparent, she took 150 milligrams of Ibogaine. That is a very small dose. And it was like magic. In 45 minutes, the withdrawal syndrome of methadone completely disappeared. Completely.
Wow.
But what happened? During 6 or 7 hours. After these 7 hours, the withdrawal effects appear again. But what we did was that instead of taking again the dose of methadone that she was taking, she took the half. If she was taking 50 milligrams of methadone, after the Ibogaine experience, when the withdrawal syndromes become again, she took 25 milligrams of methadone. And the withdrawal syndrome disappeared again. We wait 1 week and increase the dose a little bit to 200 milligrams of Ibogaine. The withdrawal syndrome disappeared again and prolonged it for more hours. And when she had to come again to methadone, she took the half of 25, 12.5. And we, little by little, we were increasing the dose of methadone and increasing the dose of Ibogaine and decreasing the dose of methadone. And in the fourth session, there were no more withdrawal syndrome anymore. And she is now, since that, I think that happened 6 or 7 years. So this protocol served to create the design of the clinical trial that we started in a hospital in the hospital of Reus, that is a little town in the south of Barcelona, in Spain, and with 20 patients with 2 arms. 10 patients every week, they were taking 100 milligrams of methadone, and in the other arm, patients were increasing the dose 100 milligrams every time, starting with 100 milligrams and finishing with 600 milligrams. Well, now I am doing the statistical analysis. I don't know yet what group works better, but this protocol serves for everybody. So all the 20 patients could reduce and eliminate the doses of methadone following a protocol in which we use very small doses of methadone, of Ibogaine, sorry, that has no significant cardiovascular effect. We measure every hour with an electrocardiogram the QT prolongation and so on, and we didn't find any severe adverse events. So I think that this is a very promising approach in order to not carry too many risks with the doses of Ibogaine, and at the same time to be able to help people to quit off from opiates.
So Jose Carlos Bouso, That's fascinating information. Let's now take a break and listen to a message from one of our commercial sponsors here at UK Health Radio. I'm your host, Catherine Carrigan, medical intuitive healer, Amazon #1 bestselling author. We're listening to Jose Carlos Bousos, scientific research director of the International Center for Ethnobotanical Education, Research, and Service. We'll be right back. Jose Carlos Bousos, you're a psychologist with a PhD in pharmacology and the scientific director for the International Center for Ethnobotanical Education, Research, and Service. What are the scientifically proven benefits of ayahuasca?
Well, ayahuasca, as I told you before, is well, a preparation of different plants. It's not an easy question because ayahuasca, the way in which ayahuasca is used in the traditional medicine is completely different, and the ways in which we want that ayahuasca produce their benefits. We want to use psilocybin for treating depression, MDMA for treating PTSD. There are several clinical trials with ayahuasca for treating also the resistant depression, and so on. And there are some researchers with ayahuasca for treating alcoholism and for treating anxiety disorders or some other kinds of problems of mental health. But this is not the way in which ayahuasca acts. Ayahuasca, to consider ayahuasca from this perspective, like if you are administering another drug, it's an approach that has not correspondence with the way in which ayahuasca is used in the traditional context. Ayahuasca in the traditional context serves, well, for starting, the concept of health is quite different in the Amazonia that here in Barcelona or in London or in Paris. No, for us, the health is like an individualistic thing, but in the Amazonia, health is something that has to do with the alignment of the physical environment, physical territory, the ecosystem, the group, and the community and the individual. And when there is a disbalance in this alignment is when appears the disease. So the use of ayahuasca, like Iboga in Africa, or peyote in Mexico, or psilocybe mushrooms in Mexico, is when there is this disembalance in this alignment, is when it's necessary to take the drug, to take the plant in order to align again. In this way, are above all a kind of communalistic medicines. Medicines that serves to enhance the community bonds, something very important in our societies, because we know that most of the problems of mental health in our societies becomes undesired loneliness, and because the community bonds are being broke, and we are being more atomized. with time, and this is a very big, I think that this is the most important problem, or as a consequence of this is where appear this what now called now the global mental health crisis, no? So we have these not these medicines, but these medical systems in the Amazonian and in other traditional cultures that can from we can learn in order to fight to this, but this is something that is systemic. It's not something that can cure a drug, because the problems of mental health in our societies are not because now brains start to get ill. There are a series or structural factors of structural determinants, social determinants, economical determinants, ecological determinants, political determinants that are in some way configuring or determining the problems of mental health in our societies. So it is necessary to work in these determinants. In this way is in which ayahuasca is used in these traditional settings, in these traditional countries, because they are acting in this alignment between the individual, the community, the ecosystem, and the geographical territory. In this way is the most holistic approach that we can see, that we can have. How to learn from these medical systems? I think that we need a change in the paradigm in order to stop considering health or mental health like the problem of the individual, and to think about humanity. But and for me, this is the most important or the most interesting use that can be done, not with ayahuasca, but the medical system in which ayahuasca is inserted. No. At the same time, there are too many researchers that are trying to find the benefits of ayahuasca for treating, as I told you before, I don't know, depression, eating disorders, whatever, because ayahuasca contains DMT or contains armin and so on, no? But this for my perspective and from the perspective in which I first work, this is a very reductionist approach. Excepting, and this is something that can be more aligned with biomedicine, and this is a very important issue, is that ayahuasca can act like a neuromodulator and induce neurogenesis. For example, in one of our studies that was published in 2015, we compared regular ayahuasca users with non-users. We matched them in a series of sociodemographical characteristics, and saw that there were physical modification in the brains, in the cortical thickness of the people who use regularly ayahuasca. And this means that ayahuasca, the regular use of ayahuasca, induced some kind of neuroplasticity in the brain. And there was a correlation between the times that people use ayahuasca and the different modifications in the cortex. So ayahuasca, I think that with other psychedelics, we are seeing also now that they can act like neuromodulators. And we find for the first time that in humans that a psychedelic can induce physical modification and produce neuroplasticity. And this is a very interesting line of research, because one of the problems of the next decades are the neurodegenerative diseases like Parkinson or Alzheimer, and we don't have any medication that works to treat. And if there is no something new in the next years, probably the public health systems will break down because of the cost of maintaining not only the people with neurodegenerative disease, but also their families and the cost of the system. So ayahuasca can in some way, there is a very interesting line of research in order to deep into their neuro modulation properties.
And with that, let's take another break and listen to a message from one of our commercial sponsors here at UK Health Radio. I'm your host, Catherine Carrigan, medical intuitive healer, Amazon #1 bestselling author. We're listening to Jose Carlos Bouso, the scientific director, psychologist, and PhD in pharmacology with iseers.org. We'll be right back. Jose Carlos Bouso, I appreciate that you're talking about the difference between the way that Western society views mental illness, which is an individual issue, and the way that the Amazonians who use ayahuasca, it's their tribal medicine, view mental illness, which is a disconnection, right? Disconnection from spirit, disconnection from the community. What are the dangers of ayahuasca, and what kind of people should definitely not use ayahuasca?
Well, the main dangers of ayahuasca, well, sometimes I used to say that the main danger of ayahuasca is to take ayahuasca with someone that didn't know how to serve ayahuasca. And because ayahuasca has become a kind of a hype and became quite mainstream. Here in Spain, you can go every weekend. You can find several ceremonies of ayahuasca, or if you go to Peru, you can. All the travel agencies propose you to go to a rainforest to drink ayahuasca, and around this business of ayahuasca, there are too many people that serve ayahuasca just for earning money, but have no any preparation at all. So the main risk of using ayahuasca is using ayahuasca with one of these people. But this has not to do with ayahuasca itself, but with the side effects that happens around the hype of ayahuasca. Regarding ayahuasca, well, ayahuasca induces a very powerful altered state of consciousness, like other psychedelics. And ayahuasca also has, with these powerful altered states of consciousness, also has a strong effect on the body. No, you can have diarrhea or vomit or have nausea. That in the traditional medicine, this is a part of the healing. In our Western medical systems, these side effects are shown like side effects or adverse events, but in the traditional Amazonian medicine, it's a desired effect. It's an effect that is healing by itself. Well, this combination of this dramatic experience, also in the phenomenological perspective, can produce visions or even hallucinations, and can induce disorientation also, because you don't. The experience can be very strong, and in the most extreme effect, ayahuasca, and this is why it's used in these systems, in these traditional systems, but also this is why it has this popularity, because when you take ayahuasca, you go to the essentials of nature, to the essentials of the meaning of the existence, and your ontological world can be destroyed. And well, there are people that maybe they are not prepared in order to front that the world like they think that the world is, and how they are in the world, their role in the world, and so on, could be a threat for them. So this is the main risk of ayahuasca. This is the main, for me, the main healing effect. But sometimes, in order to become healed, you have to suffer. And the experience with ayahuasca is not a hedonic experience at all. In Brazil, the people from the Santo Daime, that is a ayahuasca religion, the word that they refer to the ceremonies is to work, trabalho, trabajar, to work. You go there not to have fun, but to work, because you have to front to many things that are part of you, that are part of the reality, that are part of your relationships. This is why it's very important to take ayahuasca with someone that knows what is happening there when you are under the effects. And since you are entering into a new ontological world and way of understanding reality and so on, well, you have to start to think in some questions that maybe you didn't question before with the deep that ayahuasca from you. So for answering, I think that ayahuasca is a mantra to say that it's not recommended for people with schizophrenia, for example, no? or with bipolar disorders, or with people that is in the spectrum of the psychosis. But again, this is probably certain, but not 100%, because there are people that obtain some benefit with psychosis or with bipolar disorders, but probably these people should to have more precautions, and these people, we can say, that have more probabilities of suffering a severe psychological adverse reaction that people without psychotic. Also, people who have suffered some kind of trauma or child abuse, they can experience because ayahuasca, one of the things that do ayahuasca, psychedelics in general, but ayahuasca in particular. A colleague of mine, Dr. Jordi Riba, he publishes one of the first paper using neuroimaging in people who was under the effect of ayahuasca in the Hospital San Pao, and he found like the parahippocampal areas were more activated under the effects of ayahuasca. This means that you do some kind of autobiographical process, and in this recovery, of this revisiting your biography, well, you can go to places that maybe were difficult in your life, which is a very good opportunity in order to solve them. At the same time that you can go to places and scenes in your biography that were delicious and you enjoy very a lot of the experience, no? But you can find both things, no? So in the way that you are well prepared, that you are in in a setting that acts like a container, and so on, you will obtain more benefit from the ayahuasca experience. But you have to learn or to know that it's not necessarily a hedonic experience, that you will have probably moments in which you will have to work with or to deal with things that are inside of you.
Now, Jose Carlos Bouso, final question of our interview. If someone wants to participate in an ayahuasca ceremony, how can they go about finding highly trained and safe facilitators?
Well, this is not easy, but for example, a good facilitator is someone that has trained in the Amazon, and that belongs to a tradition, no? And that he was trained in this tradition. This can be a people tradition, uh, um, whatever, Queen and a Saninka. There are too many traditions that also train Western people and all. But, and of course, at the same time, there are people that are indigenous people that goes country by country using ayahuasca ceremonies, and they are a complete danger for the people because even they belong to a tradition. So for me, there are several rules or several advices. If you are going to an ayahuasca ceremony, the people who is going to use ayahuasca, the provider, has to spend some time with you in order to know you, in order to know a little bit about you. If you go to a ceremony and the guide or the provider don't come to talk to you, don't show some kind of interest about your life, about who you are, about your relationships, about your medical conditions, if you are taking some other medicines, etc. For example, I remember that I was once in a ceremony in Colombia where the man that was just cited at the side of me almost died because he was diabetic. Nobody asked him, "Do you have any medical problems?" Nobody knows what happened to him. And finally, an ambulance arrived, and he, after administering insulin, but he could die in that moment. And this could be prevented if the guide spend some minutes talking to him. For me, this is the most. If there are an emergency plan, for example, if something happens, do you have a plan? Because probably ayahuasca is a very safe decoction, but people have to go to the bathroom, and sometimes they go with the mareación, and you can have a fall or something like that, and give you a, well, it's people that is helping. If something happened, there is a plan in order to, do you know where to go or not to go? If there are, do you know if there is a hospital near, to have a kind of emergency plan. And that's all. The credentials to know, well, most of the ayahuasca providers used to say I was trained this, and it's not always true, and it's not always easy to contrast the information that they are giving. But in general, I think that the best way of avoiding these people is asking in the community, uh, going to ceremonies where with people who have already gone to one of the ceremonies. For example, when ayahuasca arrived to Europe, no, and ayahuasca started using in these little communities, no, of friends, and sometime came another friend, but the groups that used to take ayahuasca together, they meet very well between each other, no? At the same time that ayahuasca has become popularized and the people organize ceremonies, this community, so the best way, although I know that it's not easy, is to try to find these groups that have been using ayahuasca for many years and where is the community who sanctioned them.
Jose Carlos Bouso, thank you so much for sharing with us. You've been listening to the Natural Healing Show for UK Health Radio. I'm your host, Catherine Carrigan, medical intuitive healer, Amazon #1 best-selling author. You can find out more about me and my work at catherinecarrigan.com and unlimitedenergynow.com. While you're there, definitely sign up for my newsletter so you can learn even more about how you can heal yourself naturally. Our guest today has been Jose Carlos Bouso, psychologist with a PhD in pharmacology and scientific director of the International Center for Ethnobotanical Education, Research, and Service. You can find out more about Jose Carlos Bouso and his wonderful work at his website, www.iseers.org. And remember, when we get disconnected from our spiritual self and our community, we can feel depressed and anxious and mentally unwell. And the world of plant medicine can offer a way to reconnect. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next time.